Welcome, Club Familiar members. We're here at our beautiful home ranch, and we have your wonderful May shipment that's come to you, or it's coming to you soon. And myself, Steve Sangiacomo, I'm here with my sister Mia and our brother Mike, and we're going to talk through these wonderful May Club shipment wines, tell family stories about them, talk about number one, that these wines are made especially for you, our Club Familiar members. We have specific blocks, we have a new release Cabernet, and we have a Chardonnay that's so near and dear to our heart. We are here in our home ranch. Our grandfather bought this ranch in 1927. We're almost to 100 years, quite there. We're on march to 100 here in Sonoma, and we're enjoying this beautiful spring weather, 75 degrees. Bud break, 2024 season is off to a great start, and it's something that we're so excited to be here to just talk about these wines, right? Because again, these are wines that, as we just were joking, these are some of the first times we've tasted them. They're so allocated that we don't even get it. Mia's like, this is the first time I've tasted them. So without further ado, let's get into them. Let's just talk about Home Ranch 2022 Home Ranch right here. Again, this is where our grandfather and grandmother started. And this is a wine that is near and dear to our heart. When we started the wine label in 2016, which is hard to believe, it's been 7+ years with our seventh. This is our seventh release of this wine. This was one of the first vineyards of our 14 different vineyards. Home Ranch was at the top. When we started the wine label, this is a wine we have to have in our portfolio. And one reason is because it brings back so many memories of where we grew up. So I want Mike and Mia just talk about what is a home ranch. Besides the wine is obviously amazing, right? It has been. We'll talk through it. But what does a home ranch mean to you personally?
Well, for me, it's the epitome of every childhood memory I have. This is literally where I've learned to walk, ride my bike, and drive a truck. In freedom. I had freedom that I feel like even our kids don't have today, just to roam around and at early ages, like 12 years old, hopping in a truck, just finding a truck laying around with keys in, and as much as riding a bike with our Aunt Lorraine. And
so just so you know, if you haven't been here, our home ranch where our tasting terrace is, which is amazing, please come visit. Just right, literally maybe 1,000 feet. That's where our grandparents, our dad, our uncles, our aunt grew up. That's where Mike and I and Mia, we spent hours. And we always joke our parents had a babysitter down the road, which grandparents, we spent many of nights, growing up there. And this, hence these child memories that you talk about, where we learned how to walk, we learned how to drive. But Mike, what is some of your childhood memories?
The same thing Mia talked about, just family and chat, and growing up here. I'll just touch upon one of the memories you talked about. We spent nights here, and our aunt always would take us on a walk down to the creek. So the southern part of the home ranch is bordered by Sonoma Creek, and there's so much wildlife in there. And we spent hundreds of hours in there as a kid, learning to skip rocks and learning about nature and stuff. And those just things are still really bonded in my memory today.
I remember the wagon coming out of being pulled in the wagon, because we had these old school wagon that you'd pull. If you pulled a kid in a wagon now, you'd probably be in trouble because you didn't have a seatbelt and a safety helmet on. But so I remember being pulled out and just being drug out of the creek and falling, right, and getting my first, and then it was like
your first head stitches.
First head stitches, exactly, pretty much. That's where I was going with that. So again, childhood memories, wine that's near and dear. Let's talk about, most importantly, this is a pear orchard. Behind us, it was converted to wine grapes in the early 80s. It was the second vineyard that we planted ever. Green Acre was our first, and Home Ranch was our second. So let's talk a little bit about the wine. 2022, amazing vintage. It's a wine that, again, is only about 20% new oak. Again, James McPhail, our amazing winemaker. One reason why we chose James is he allows our vineyards to be showcased in our wine. And so that's the first thing. Every time I drink one of our wines, I taste our vineyard. Home Ranch, we have 20 different wineries sourced from the Home Ranch. This is old Wente clone, right? Exclusive, one of the most sought after Chardonnay clones, the sought after Chardonnay clone. So Mike, what do you get out of this 2022 Home Ranch?
Well, definitely lemon, There's a little apple too, a little apple and pear notes as well, but I definitely get some, not so much, too many tropical notes, but dominated by pear and apple for me.
A pear and apple in a pear orchard. Imagine that. Mia, what do you get? What do you get from?
Well, I was gonna say I have to be honest. The balance of this, like, I'm a Chardonnay drinker, and people always ask, "What's your favorite wine?" And you know, this as far as Chardonnay, this is a perfect balance of just something bright,
Ripeness, acidity.
Right. Yeah.
So there, our vineyards are close to the bay and ocean. Literally, this fog and wind pour in. And so all of our Chardonnays have that bright acidity, and that's when this is classic, Sonoma County, Carneros, Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. Just bright acidity, ripe fruit, but just so, I think you nailed on the balance. Okay, now we're going to transition to your favorite Chardonnay. My personal favorite is Pinot Noir. And so this Club Familiar shipment is amazing. Allocation of these 2 clonal series. We're adding a second clone. For those of you Club Familiar members that have block 11, we're actually adding a block 21 clone. It's a clone 115. So a little history on our Roberts Road vineyard. So Roberts Road, this year we are celebrating our 25th year farming Roberts Road. And so this vineyard is a vineyard that's near and dear to our heart. Hence, as we started the wine label, it was one of our vineyards we selected to be showcased in our portfolio, because this is a vineyard we found it's in the northern part of the Petaluma Gap, up by Katati, Pengrove. It's a part of Sonoma County that was undiscovered. So our father, our dad Angelo, he discovered it in the late 90s. He had a friend there that turned him on. Ed Grossi turned him on to this amazing site. There's nothing around it. Right, there's just basically there's nothing. Everyone thought it was too cold to plant wine grapes, and so we took a chance. And our dad was so proud of the vineyard. It was something that we call it the passing of the torch vineyard. He found it. He allowed Mike, me, and I handed the torch to us and said, "I found it. Now you guys get to develop it." So we were really involved in laying out road direction, clones. Hence why we're going to talk about clones here soon, of how Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, how to plant it. This is kind of like our test. Mike, let's talk about clones. Let's talk about Roberts Road. What does Roberts Road mean to you? Block 21, we're talking clone 115.
Roberts Road just is a gem of a place. We got very fortunate, as Steve had alluded to. The neighbor turned my dad onto it. And then as we got into it, we were doing soil tests, and the soils were just coming back, remarkably. The tests that, didn't need any amendments, really balanced, well-drained soils. So then it came down, as Steve said, the climate. So took a chance on it, and it's just warm enough to get Pinot and Chardonnay ripe. And I think that's kind of the ideal scenarios, where you want it to be cool as you can be, but you have to get it right. But it does have enough warmth to get it ripe, and we've just had real good luck with the Pinot Noir there. They're kind of exceptional. They're unique based on the soil and the climate.
Mia's quote is, "Each vineyard is an heirloom," because it really tells a story, right? There's always a connection with family. So Mia, what is Roberts Road? You always tell a good story.
Well, yeah, my memory of is just my dad was like, I don't know, I came home from living in the city one weekend. He's like, "Get in the car." His biggest thing, he loved to drive around and look at. Just drive around, get in the truck, and sometimes you're like, "Okay, I want to show you this property," and he drove us up.
He showed us plenty. That we did not purchase.
Driving around and looking at land was a hobby. Son dad's golfed. He drove around and looked at land. But I got in there, and he was just like, I think we're gonna buy this. This is gonna be for you and your brothers, and like, very lucky that he, had us always in mind of our future all the time. But he was so excited and proud of it, and it was nothing. It was like, I'm driving, I'm like, oh, land, great, how 20s.
He was like, our dad was like an architect of viticulture. Like, he could see the vision. Like, you'd go out to a site and he saw it all planted. He saw the vision. It was amazing how, it's like you bring out someone, like, he just could see it before it happened. And I just remember his enthusiasm. Okay, now we're going to move on to our Block 11. So a Block 11 from our Roberts Road Swan clone. This is kind of the inspiration of our clonal series. So this, I alluded to, a site that can make individual clones stand on their own, and that's what Roberts Road can. And this was a block that James, in our 2019 tasting, we've been making this since 2019, we were doing our annual tasting. It's like, we all taste like, guys, we need to bottle some of this by itself. It is absolutely special. It talks to what Swan is, what Pinot Noir specificity is. So as we're talking about clones, as we're talking about this clonal series, which is on the back of the label, I wanted Mike maybe to touch on like what is a clone. Some of you maybe, I know a lot of you are very sophisticated in your wine knowledge, but maybe Mike, just talk a bit, maybe what is a clone when we talk like clonal series of wine, in this case Pinot Noir.
Clones of a variety we talk about, it's a variable of the same variety, and that usually happens through natural mutation in the field, is what happens over time. There'll be a vine that's exhibiting a certain characteristic, whether a disease resistance or a fruit character that the winery or winemaker wants, and then they'll take a cutting from that and propagate it, and now you have a new clone.
And each clone has its own little characteristics, and then it gets into even like site over each site. The clone can be a little different in each site, which makes sense when you have the terroir element of the soil, all the climate around it. So they can all be expressive in their own particular way, and that's why, like this Swan selection that we have at Roberts Road is a little different than we have in other sites. I mean, it's something that to me it has some gamey characteristic, but just a lot of just true rich Pinot Noir characters, just rightness. And I always say like the Block 11. So when we planted this vineyard, I'll never forget. It was the site is actually really. The vineyard itself, so we're hosting actually a little promo, and June 23rd, we are hosting a Roberts Road 25th anniversary celebration at our vineyard. We're doing a lunch. Club Famiglia members are invited, of course, and we're going to go into each individual vineyard and see the sites. The one thing, you get out there and you can see the rock. But this particular vine, the berries are so tiny, and by then, bloom will be done, and we'll be able to see the berries are some of the smallest berries that we farm on all our opera, and that I think that attributes a lot to that just structure and richness in the wine. So, Mia, what do you get when you talk?
Well, if I'm comparing them, I get a little bit more of the fruits, the cherries, the blackberries, but the tannins.
Blueberries. There's some blueberries. Bing cherry.
But I will say the tannins are, the mouthfeel really is, it's the tannins are definitely more, it's more of a mouthfeel.
It is, and that's where the small berries, so texture, skin, seeds, there's so little juice. So all that juice is getting enamored with that's where the flavor and all the texture comes from skins and seeds. So that's, again, so the other thing, I think you talk about is, I think it's baking spice, right?
Yeah, baking spice.
Tons of baking spice. And this is a great, talking about Mia's recipe. So Mia, drum roll. Here we go. Mia's got our grandmother Marie's.
Yes.
This Rolodex of recipes.
And the one that I continue to cook over and over.
She's got a lot, but
her gravy sauce. But I did beef short ribs with this. It's just, if you want to know the epitome of what our family meals, holiday meals was the gravy sauce. The beef, it was the short ribs. So I just did the short ribs with this, and I used, which, she would have killed me if I used these wines in it, because but I did I actually cooked it. So it calls for like 2 cups of red wine. And it really does, they'd always say, oh, it doesn't matter what you put in it, and then, money, they didn't have wine like they did the variety.
Well, they didn't have this good of wine.
They did not have this kind of good wine, no. They didn't have the accessibility. I mean, these were pear trees. They weren't vineyards, so we didn't have wine like we do now. And so she would just use anything, but that's one thing I did, elevated the wine selection. And the secret to that is, which goes really well with the Pinot, is the dried mushrooms, the porcinis, that umami flavor you get. Actually, kind of have it on this, but I'm feeling this kind of carries really well with this. So I did blend. I put in a couple cups of our good wine Pinots in the gravy, but you're welcome to use whatever. But
so gravy, for those, it means pasta sauce. So the Northern Italians, where we're from, we call it gravy. Middle South, they call it pasta sauce. We call it gravy. So
it's gravy.
So this short rib, and Mike can probably tell his stories. Family.
It's not a yellow. It's not tomato sauce.
But I remember. So she would make her gravy and freeze it all. There'd be like Tupperware all over. We'd all go take it. It'd be all over our family's freezers. But she'd do it every 3 months, would you say? Probably.
I think it even.
And so, but when she did that, she'd make this humongous pot. I mean, it was a pot that would, could serve one of Mike and I's football. Actually, we used it when we cooked football meals when Mike and I played football. We'd have it, humongous pot of pasta. But it'd be filled with just obviously sauce, and then these beef short ribs, and that gave the flavor, the texture. The same thing. Obviously, we're talking wine, but I remember she would box up, the gravy and put it in the Tupperware, and then guess what was left? The short ribs. So we'd go up there for lunches and
that was when she cooked it. Yeah,
she cooked it. It was like
then
melted on the bone. Okay, now we're to our last wine, and this is actually the inaugural first time we've ever done this wine, and it's one wine that we're extremely excited for. It's another Cabernet Sauvignon that we're introducing into our portfolio from the Napa Valley. So for those of you that have had our Oak View Vineyard in Oakville District, say that after 2 glasses of Cabernet, I dare you, Oak View Vineyard. So that's a wine that is actually, when we started the wine label in 2016, we were known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but no one knew that we had this hidden jewel in the Oakville Vineyard in Napa Valley. A vineyard that we owned since the 80s for over 30 years. And it was we had to have a Cabernet in our portfolio because we love to drink red wine. Our family, Italian food, what goes better with Italian food than red wine? So with that, we had our Oakville, from the start we did an Oak View Vineyard in Oakville District. And the reception was, every time it was released, it'd sell out. It went on allocation. So with a lot of sentiments from you Club Familiar members, like, we want another Cabernet Sauvignon. So fortunately or unfortunately, our Oakview Vineyard in Oakview is on allocation. We can only get, it's our vineyard, but we can only get a certain amount of tons. Trust me, every year, if a winery leaves, we get as much as we can. So with that, it was important to do this Napa Valley SKU because that's where Oakview, it's in Napa Valley, which Napa Valley is the quintessential best region to grow Cabernet in the world. I'll say it. And so with that, fortunately, James, we got a couple extra tons. We tried to squeeze another one. We couldn't. So talking to James fortunately had some resources, right? I mean, he had connections with his other relationships. So we were able to source some fruit from other neighboring areas around the Napa Valley. So, I mean, other 5 AVAs, you have Oakville, Rutherford, Napa Valley, Yountville, Oak Knoll, Mount Veeder. I mean, we have 5 Maybe we should call this the 5 Appellation blend. So, again, a Cabernet that just screams Napa Valley. Maybe to talk about an Oak View Vineyard that we farmed since, for over 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful site for Cabernet. Steve talked about, Napa Valley. I mean, some of the very best Cabernets in the world come from there. And we're fortunate to have our vineyard in the Oakville district, Oak View in Oakville, as Steve said. But it's just because of the climate, with some of the great characteristics that make down here in our Carneros, Sonoma Coast area that make great for Pinot and Chard aren't great for Cabernet, but you head back up into upper Napa Valley where we are there, and it's just the soils are a little different, and then really the climate. You have that nice, warm, dry climate, and that's what really gets the ripeness from these Bordeaux.
And they get that afternoon. They do get afternoons, just enough coolness, right, to keep those vines, just like our Pinot Noir and Chardonnay love to have that afternoon, little air conditioning. Napa Valley has more heat during the day, right, which gets more the Bordeaux varieties ripe, but it gets that air conditioning. I mean, it's amazing how this little funnel it gets just enough winds and just to keep it cool enough to continue that just acceleration or that just maintain the acidity and the ripeness that you get. So a few little precursor of our events coming up soon to you, Club Familiar members. We hope you guys come. Some of you guys, what better way to do a vacation than come out to Sonoma and Napa, visit us here. But we do have some events coming up. As I mentioned earlier, we have June 23rd. We have the celebration of our Roberts Road Vineyard 25th anniversary in Cotati. It's not that far. From Sonoma Valley, it's only 25 minutes away. And then we're also doing another Catarina celebration. So our Catarina Gardens, amazing special site that is a garden area we've we kind of developed and built just a family heritage. It's just like our home ranch is our family heritage. Catarina has a lot of family heritage elements to it. So that is on August 18th. This Cabernet Sauvignon will be one of the featured wines there, along with these other Chardonnays. We have surprise wines in that, soon to be. But all of them will feature library wines, which I'd like to complain. Our wines age amazingly. That's one thing they do. We get a lot. Can I age them? Are they ready? So James McPhail, our winemaker, does an amazing job of making them ready, right, ready to drink, and also to be able to age. I mean, we continue open, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 17 Chardonnays. I do encourage you, if you get them, to try one. They're ready to drink. I mean, they're, as we're tasting here, but age them. They're the expression of our terroir, our sites. James does a magical job of allowing that. So we encourage you, Club Famiglia members, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're here. We have Mia's recipes. Again, come visit us. And we're so honored and we're thankful for your support. And, you are the inspiration behind all these wines. I mean, every time we do these little tastings, and it's why we do it. And just to allow our vineyards to be showcased in these amazing wines. And we just want to cheers you and look forward to hopefully seeing you guys all soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.